It's a Locked On crossover edition with Locked On Angels and Locked On Rangers, and we're here to give you all the highlights and moments from a wild weekend series, including a 13-inning game that ended in one of the craziest ways. It's time to get Locked On with Mike, John, and Bryce. It's a Locked On crossover edition with Locked On Rangers and Locked On Angels. Let's go.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making this Locked On crossover your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels and Locked On Rangers. And if you'd like to give back to us for all this great content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation.
Thank you for being here for this Locked On crossover edition of Locked On Angels and Locked On Rangers. I'm one half of the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
And my name is John, and that's my friend Bryce. What's up, Bryce? How are you doing?
Hey, y'all. I'm doing all right. I would be doing better if my team wasn't playing terrible baseball right now, but you know what? It's all right.
That's how
it's
we
all
feel,
right.
too.
The Mavs and Stars are in the Western Conference Finals, so I am getting my sports joy elsewhere and remembering my own team's playoff run from just a year ago.
That's right. That's right.
Quite fun.
I love that. I love that. Hey, we want to thank you for making Locked On Angels and Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On today's show, of course, the three of us are here recapping the weekend series between the Angels and the Rangers. It was a wild one, and this is the first Angels series against an AL West opponent this year. Bryce, I don't know if you guys knew that on Locked On Rangers, but man, we have waited years to play the AL West. Now,
Right.
actually, it was just 40-something games, but here we are. Mike, why don't you give us a little rundown of what happened in Game 1 for us?
Yeah, before we get to Game 1, I'd love to hear from Bryce and get your overall thoughts. And Bryce, if you could give Locked On Angels listeners a bit of a heads up. So tell us quickly about the Rangers coming into this series and where they are currently. Are they having a World Series hangover? Give us some thoughts.
Yeah, they're definitely having a World Series hangover. And I remember like people talking about that a bunch at the beginning of the season. I was like, that's not going to happen to this team. That's not going to happen to my team. Like my team's better than that. It's not going to happen. I mean, well, did have, three major pitchers on the IL who are going to be out for half the season. And then the starting rotation got even more hurt. But the starting pitching hasn't been a problem. John Gray's been great. Andrew Heaney, you look at his overall numbers, they don't look pretty, but for the outside of the start that he made on Friday, he's been mostly pretty solid for this team. Then you throw in Lorenzen as well, and the guys who have been in the rotation have been great. It's just been the offense that's been a problem. And we kind of saw that this entire series. The offense it's scoring runs. Like they'll still have some offensive outbursts, but the consistency has just not been there. And that's why a lot of Rangers fans are really frustrated with where this team is at right now. They've got good back end closing options in Kirby Yates and David Robertson. They've been great. And it's taken a while for Corey Seager to get going, but it seems like he really finally is back to his full Corey Seager self. He had surgery in January on a sports hernia, so he missed most of spring training. Just didn't look right for the first month, but he's back. But this offense just... it's not where it was last year, and that has been really frustrating.
And John, can you give the Locked On Rangers everydayers a bit of background as to what the Angels are doing and what they're like coming into this series?
Well, friends of Locked On Rangers, the Angels are trying to win now. That's what they've been telling us since before the season started. And as you can see from the standings, that's working out great. No, actually, it's really kind of funny because like that's been the company line since before the season started. But if you read between the lines and listen to the things that Ron Washington has been saying about this team, he said a lot of things about this team is learning how to win. These guys are learning how to take losses. They're learning how to navigate ball games. Logan O'Hoppe is learning how to be a good catcher behind the dish. And if you just take it from the manager's perspective, the guy who probably knows about this team the most, and if you've been listening to Locked On Angels at all, you know that this year for us has been no expectations. And we are just looking forward to seeing the young guys growing and getting opportunities. And I think that you could see that from somebody like Joe Adell this past weekend, who before this season had less than a year's worth of major league at bats in the majors across 4 years. So they're finally letting him play every day for the most part. It did take a little bit to get there, but it's that kind of season for the Angels right now. Just watching these young guys figure it out along the way and try to supplement that with some veterans out of the bullpen and things like that. And that's actually been a weak point for the Angels, is the bullpen, even though that was supposed to be where they spent the most money. All of that to say, it's a growing year for the Angels.
Well, let me take you to Friday's game, and it was an Angel victory, 9-3. Game was dominated by Tyler Anderson. He gave up 1 run in 7 innings, and he got his 4th win of the season. And he said in this game, after this game, he didn't feel great about his stuff in general. Is that a humble brag? And then he said he tried to mix and move the ball around a bit, speed them up, speed them down, slow them down. And so he did a lot of that on the mound. And then from the offensive perspective, the Angels had a couple of home runs from Zach Neto and Taylor Ward, and the Angels starters, except for Nolan Shonowell, had a hit, including 14 total hits in this game. So a lot of offense for the Angels. Johnny, this was one of those Angel games where every series they have one game where they put everything together.
Yes.
It felt like that game, did it not?
Yeah, absolutely. And it helped by, you said heading into the weekend, I said, hey, old friend Andrew Heaney, old friend of the Angels. And you said, well, if he's going to be old friend Andrew, I want him to pitch like he did for the Angels.
Thank you, Andrew.
In this game. and that's exactly what happened. And the Angels were able to stack up. Everybody had a hit except Nolan Shonowell, every starter. And it totaled 14 hits in this one. And yeah, there's always a game like this. And so even though the Angels came away with a win on Friday, it was like, well, what are the next 2 games going to look like? And that's kind of been where we've been sitting as Angel fans this year.
And for the Rangers, the offense came from Marcus Semien. He had 2 RBIs, and of course, Angel killer Jonah Anaheim. He hit a home run in this game. And Bryce, the Rangers allowed 9 runs to the Halos, and they haven't had a great offense. You mentioned the Rangers offense. What was your main takeaway from game 1 of this series?
Well, I mean, I feel like it was incredibly fitting of Tyler Anderson saying, oh, I didn't have my best stuff. And he just went out and dominated this lineup.
Yeah, right.
This team has faced the most lefty plate appearances since, I believe it's May 4th. It's been just so many lefties, and they've struggled mightily with it. Evan Carter is the main culprit. He's only had, I think, heading into this week, I don't know if he's gotten any more lefty plate appearances, but like in his pro career, he's had like fewer than 300 lefty on lefty plate appearances. So I'm like, you got to let the kid play. But they made a trade for Robbie Grossman to hit lefties. And well, I just don't know why they made a trade for Robbie Grossman, but it just kind of goes to show, like, it doesn't matter who is being thrown out there as a lefty on the hill. Their main lefty masher, Josh Young, has been on the IL since after the 4th game of the season. He took a pitch on the wrist from Phil Maton that fractured his wrist. He's going to be out until maybe the end of June. It's rough because he's still in those 4 games, he did well enough that he is still number 11 in Baseball Reference WAR on this Rangers team at 0.6 Baseball Reference WAR in 4 games as a position player.
Wow.
That's how good he was.
Yeah.
And very heartbreaking for him because he destroys lefties. And well, Nathaniel Lowe and Corey Seager are lefties who hit lefties well, but just not a whole lot of hitting going on for this Rangers team that was supposed to be carried by this offense at this point in the year.
Right. And we're going to talk about it in a couple other segments, but there was a lot of intentional passes this weekend, especially to Corey Seager. There's not a lot of protection in the lineup right now for him. And it was a good move for the Angels because Corey Seager, along with Jonah Heim, have really been consistently just a terror in Anaheim against the Angels. Now, Wash, you remember Wash, he was in Texas for a while. He was asked about this game in particular, and if this is the start of consistently better baseball for the Angels. And he said, I hope so. Sound like all Angel fans. I hope so. We just don't know with this team. And Bryce, it sounds like you're kind of in that same boat with the Rangers. It's kind of like, well, I hope this brings something to the table. But would you feel like that is kind of a way to describe the Rangers season so far?
Yeah, and it's confusing because like there's literally 6 starting pitchers for the Rangers on the IL right now. So if the Rangers were losing a bunch of games because of things like Friday's game where Andrew Heaney just gets lit up, you'd be like, okay, well that's annoying, but like that's what I expected to happen. Like the whole mantra of the season was just hold out, stay above water, like until Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom and Tyler Mahle get off the IL, and then you add Josh Young to that list as well. And, that just hasn't been how it's gone. But Ron Washington, it's been a while since he's had a young team. Like the last young, scrappy team he had was the 2009 Rangers. And that team was pretty solid. His first year in Texas, 2007, was before my extreme obsession with baseball. But I remember it pretty vividly. Do you remember who was on that team, the 2007 Rangers, Ron Washington's first year? Sammy Sosa. Was on that team.
That's right.
38-year-old DH Sammy Sosa, and still mainly the same core that ended up being that great core for the Rangers in the 2010s of Ian Kinsler, Michael Young, Nelson Cruz was on that team as well, and David Murphy. But, it's been a while since Wash had to have those growing pains with the young team, but he did eventually get the Rangers there. 2007, they had a losing record. 2008, they had a losing record. 2009, they finished second division. And then the next year, 2010, was when they went to those back-to-back World Series runs, and he was the manager all the way through 2014. So I think it's definitely going to be, like I always thought it was going to be an adjustment period for Wash getting back in the saddle as manager, literally 10 years after his last chance. But love seeing him get that shot, and I think that he is a great fit for this Angels team.
Johnny, the Angels got a victory on the road. They seem to win more on the road than they do at home. They're 10 games under 500 at home, and on the road after this series are just 1 game under 500. But after this game, got a victory. What do you think it is, John? The road versus home. Why do you think this team is struggling so much at home versus playing really well on the road?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you can point to except for the fact that it's been growing pains, and so they've had a couple. They started out on the road. They came home for a bit. They went back out on a road trip, came home for a bit. And again, like I mentioned at the top, Ron Washington has pointed to, this team is learning how to win ball games. And so, a month and a half in, I think they're just getting better at doing that. At the same time, they still are not without their mistakes. And we'll certainly talk about a big mistake that happened in Saturday's game for this Angel team. But going back to what Bryce was talking about with the Rangers and Ron Washington, I think that Ranger fans should know that I think most Angel fans would agree that he's the right guy for this team at the moment because he has influenced so many players. And there was a lot of talk about him working with Marcus Semien, getting him from one of the worst shortstops in the league to being a Gold Glove second baseman last season. And so the fact that Ron Washington has had such a good influence on players over the years, we think he's the perfect guy. At least Mike and I do. We think he's the perfect guy to be guiding this team right now, especially with young players like Zach Neto and Nolan Shonawell and Logan O'Hoppe. So all of that to say, and to go back to your point, Mike, I think that they are just kind of getting through some of those growing pains that happened at the beginning of this season, and they're finding some consistency from unexpected places. I got to give it up to Bryce because when Willie Calhoun got the call up, Bryce was like, old friend alert. And I said, yeah, this is how we drew it up. And Bryce said, I still believe in him. And Bryce, of course, knows ball and got that and hit the nail on the head with Willie Calhoun and helping out the Angels. Hey, thanks for making this Locked On crossover edition of Locked On Angels and Locked On Rangers your first listen of the day. The Rangers probably are taking a much needed day off today, and the Angels are playing the Astros at 5:10 Pacific time at the Juice Box. I call it the jigsaw puzzle because I hate the dimensions and the shape of that stadium. That's one thing we can agree on in this crossover is like,
absolutely. I'm about to say for the next, what is it, the 3-game set or a 4-game set?
Believe 3 games. Yeah.
Well, for the next 3 games, I'm the biggest Angels fan there is. Boys.
Welcome to the team.
Yeah, there you go. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM on the SXM app. If you're interested in listening, just search Angels. Coming up, game 2 of this series was wild. It had really great pitching and not great clutch timing or hitting. It ended up with a walk-off hit by pitch. We've got the highlights and our thoughts on all of that coming right up.
This crossover is brought to you by our friends at Policygenius. Fellas, I checked out Policygenius and it was so helpful for me. We were looking into life insurance. I'm 44, didn't think I needed life insurance.
I was going to say it makes sense because you're the oldest out of all three of us.
Thanks for that reminder. But you know, with a wife and 3 kids, if something does happen tragically, hopefully it's tragically, then I want to be able to make sure that they're taken care of. And Policygenius has been so helpful in finding just the right policy. In fact, with Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 a year for $1 million worth of coverage. The truth is, for a lot of us, we've got work life insurance policies, and it may not be enough to protect you or your family. And even worse, if the time comes where you tragically pass, you may not be able to carry that money over if you left a job previous to that. So that's why you need Policygenius. It's easy to compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. And they've got an award-winning team of agents at Policygenius that'll walk you through the process step by step. This is what I love. The best part is that they're committed to giving you unbiased advice and wisdom with the goal of helping you. They're not incentivized to recommend one insurer over the other, so you can trust their guidance. They've got thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs, and I am one of those customers. Grateful for that. So head to policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB. That way that they know that you came from Locked On. Again, policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB. You can click the link in the description. Also, again, the website is policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB.
And today's Locked On crossover is brought to you by Yahoo Finance. Look, you just got done talking about thinking about your future. Well, when it comes to your financial future, you might have think that you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested all that you can. Today, you can take those investments to the next level with our friends at Yahoo Finance. They've been working in the investment world for more than 25 years. That's half Mike's lifetime. In fact, when you get to see a great investment, chances are it was with the help of the team at Yahoo Finance. Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need to make wise investments all in one place. Yahoo Finance gives you a comprehensive perspective. That's what sets them apart against great investors and sets you apart as a great investor. They provide you with a holistic look at the financial news cycle, breaking down financial and stock market news, original editorial perspectives that come from some of the best minds in the investment world. It's all on Yahoo Finance. Analyst ratings, independent research, customized charts, and so much more. You think you dig into the baseball stats, you can dig into the financial stuff with Yahoo Finance. You can securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including your 401k and other investments with Yahoo Finance. With a community of over 90 million users a month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit yahoofinance.com, the #1 financial destination and the place that will help you be wise with your investments. yahoofinance.com. Once again, that's yahoofinance.com. Hey, thanks for making this crossover edition of Locked On Angels and Locked On Rangers your first listen today. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And once you're done here, head on over to Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, covering all the top stories across the sports world of the day. So check it out on YouTube 24/7 and on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Speaking of your teams every day, we got 2 teams in the house. The Rangers are off today. They got a much needed off day. The Angels are playing the Astros in Houston at 5:10 Pacific time. And if you're interested, you can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Let's go to game 2 on Saturday. The Rangers won this one 3-2. Strong pitching in this game for both teams. Hitting, however, was not a strong suit. The Rangers were 2 for 12 with runners in scoring position. They left 12 men on base. The Angels, Johnny, were 0 for 18 with runners in scoring position.
Hey, that's my team.
And they were 1 short. If they went 0 for 19, they would have tied a major league record. So here we are, breaking records in Anaheim.
They tied a record set by the 97 Angels, by the way, that 0 for 18 with runners in scoring position. So
that's awesome.
The 97 Angels were just fantastic, weren't they?
Right. No, they were terrible. I was 17. So both starters in this game were actually really strong. Patrick Sandoval has really had a couple of good starts his last few starts. He went 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 3 walks, 5 Ks, a 3.03 ERA in his last 5 starts. And for the Rangers, Bryce, their starter went 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned, 1 walk, and 3 Ks. But the game really came down to extras. And there was one great play for the Angels, Johnny. In the 10th inning, Joe Adell throws out Josh Smith at the plate to preserve the tie. But the game actually ended in a wild sequence. So, Johnny, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, neither team was really able to mount any sort of offense through this. Both teams didn't score through the 9th, the 10th, the 11th, the 12th. I had time to go pick up a pizza like a half an hour away and come back, and the game was still going on because nobody was scoring.
Wow.
And the Halos didn't score in the top of the 13th, and they had plenty of opportunities to do so. In fact, 8 runners were placed at second base and extras before one finally scored, and that happened in the bottom of the 12th. The Angels loaded the bases with an intentional walk to Corey Seager. What is it about this team and intentional walks to Corey Seager that get them in trouble, Mike?
Yep.
The next batter was Nathaniel Lowe. Don't call him Nate. Only his mom can do that. Who was facing Carson Fulmer. Look, Rangers fans, Carson Fulmer is somebody who has been kind of a light in the darkness in this Angel bullpen. And you saw that in the 12th inning, right? He came out there, was able to hold the Rangers. And then first pitch, Carson Fulmer hits Nathaniel Lowe on the shin to force in the winning run. And I got to say, I was impressed with Joe Adell. He was responsible for an RBI in this one, hitting that home run out to right center. That was powerful to hit it that direction.
Yeah.
And then that throw out assist at home plate. I don't think that the runner should have been sent because, but
absolutely not.
I'll as an Angels fan and a Joe Adell fan, I'll take it. Bryce, what a wild way to end this game. Talk about this ending and what you thought about the intentional walk to Corey Seager. Was it smart? Was it stupid? Did the Angels put themselves in this position once again, intentionally walking Corey Seager?
Well, I mean, it's smart. Corey Seager is, for my money, and has been since at least the start of last year, the best hitter on planet Earth. Like, he was just absolutely unbelievably good last year. And like, the thing that impressed me the most about him is not only like the postseason, like insanity of how great he was in the entire postseason, but if you go look at his, like, any kind of split, any way you want to dice it up last year, whatever kind of pitcher he was facing, whatever type of pitch, whatever handedness the pitcher was, he excelled at everything. Fastballs, breaking balls, like off speed stuff. Like, he just hit there was no weakness in his game, no part of the zone, no nothing you could get Corey Seager out with. And when he's on his game, that's what he is. And finding a number 3 hitter to back that up, because Simeon's been incredibly consistent, because that's just who Marcus Semien is. Seager has been on an absolute run the last couple weeks, starting to look like his old self. But finding a number 3 hitter to provide the appropriate amount of protection for the guy who is one of the best hitters on earth. And when this lineup's going, it is incredibly deep, but right now it's not really going. So the depth to back it up and for Corey Seager to work those walks and trust that somebody else in this lineup is going to come through. That's what made them so good last year. It's what's made them good at times this year, but that doesn't really work of, working your walks and not trying to do too much when nobody's doing much of anything outside of Corey Seager.
Right.
One interesting note is that anytime the Rangers have gotten to 500, they've won. So this was a game where they were at 500 because they lost Friday and then they won. So that's good news for you. See, the Angels, just when they get to 500, they like to get as far under 500 as possible just to drive John and I nuts. But Johnny,
we did it.
Yeah, exactly. Johnny, talk about these bullpen guys.
On that note, before I let you move on, because the Rangers have not been below 500 under Bruce Bochy, even for a day.
Wow.
Like, that goes back to last year as well. It's been really close a lot of times this year, but that's a fun nugget. I'm like, I knew it was close, and there'd been quite a few times. But it's funny, but because on opening day, when they won last year on opening day, it was the first time the Rangers had been above 500 since, like, I want to say August of 2020. Like it had been that long, like not even for a minute in 2021 or 22. So it was like, okay, just keep that nose above 500, please.
There's power in a good manager and power in some talent, right? And so that's exciting for the Rangers. Johnny, the bullpens were strong in this game. So talk about how impressive, especially for the Angels, because that bullpen hasn't been super fantastic, how impressive both of these bullpens were for both teams.
Well, you had Carlos Estevez go out there twice and kept the Rangers from scoring. He has had the worst start to the season as a closer, and even when he's got a cushion, he just cannot hold the lead for the Angels, and it's cost them some really key games. It cost them a game against the Phillies, and so they were hanging around right there with the first place Phillies, and maybe even could have taken a series from the Phillies, but there was a blown save there. Blew a save the other night against the Royals, which was a shame because it erased Griffin Canning's great start. But for him to come back out there, go 2 innings like that and prevent the Rangers from scoring, it was a loss. But from Mike and I's perspective, it felt like a bit of a momentum builder. It really just came down to that silly hit by pitch at the end. I joke that this game, we all say it's a game of inches. Well, that game was a game of shinches, is how I should say that. A game of shinches.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, exactly.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Are you struggling to close deals? B2B selling is tougher than ever, and that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals such as job changes or which accounts you should prioritize, and it shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That is linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon and get started.
Final game of the weekend was on Sunday, and the Angels got a victory. And Johnny, their third series victory of the year. We're 3-12-1 for you Locked On Ranger fans. We're not doing very well, but this was a series win, which we needed. And it was another pitcher's duel. Michael Lorenzen, former friend, former Angel, against Jose Soriano. Lorenzen, 6 1/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, and 6 Ks. And then Soriano, 7 innings, 7 2/3, most in a game this season for him. It was a career high, and it was the longest start for an Angels this season. 5 hits, 1 run, 2 walks. One of them was an intentional walk, and 5 Ks. Johnny, the Angels broke this game open in the 7th inning. Why don't you walk us through those details?
It all began with Bryce's friend, Willie Calhoun. He doubled. Then Joe Adell walked. Zach Neto walked. That loaded the bases. With 1 out, Mickey Moniak had a bloop single to tie the game. And by the way, this is the frustration of baseball. If you're a Rangers fan, it had a 14% probability to land for a hit, and that's what happened. So Calhoun was able to score from third on that one. Then Kevin Pillar, you guys, Rangers fans, it's so ridiculous. We picked up Kevin Pillar right after he was DFA'd by the White Sox because Trout got hurt, and so we thought, all right, pick up Kevin Pillar. He's a veteran. He has been a godsend, a God blessing. This guy has had more RBIs in such a short amount of time, and he added on when he pinch hit for Kyron Paris and singled in 2 more runs, followed by an RBI triple from Luis Rengifo. That made it 4-1 at that point. The Rangers did threaten in the bottom of the 8th. They loaded the bases, and Luis Garcia came in to get the last out. He got Jonah Heim to pop out to center field, but good grief, you guys. Luis Garcia drives me absolutely insane. And so for him to load the bases as soon as he comes into the game, it's that splitter, Mike. Why is he throwing that splitter? And just so you know, Bryce, and your Rangers fans, our pitching coach, Barry Enright, worked under Brent Strom for the Diamondbacks, and so we had a lot of hope for him coming in. And he's done some things like told Patrick Sandoval, hey, dude, get rid of your four-seam fastball. It's no good. And so I'm waiting for him to tell Luis Garcia, hey, dude, stop throwing that splitter. It's no good. Now, he has been a revelation for somebody like Jose Soriano, who I'm sure you're familiar with, out of the bullpen.
I was not familiar with Jose Soriano until this game, and see a guy going in there and chucking what they're calling 97-mile-an-hour splitters. I'm like,
right.
Who is this guy?
Yeah,
who is this man?
He was out of the Angels bullpen last year and over the offseason, and very kind of late into spring training, they said, you know what? He's got starter stuff. And in fact, he was drafted as a starter, and since then he had 2 Tommy John surgeries, and so he's at a point in his career where they're ready to try it again, and so that's where he came from.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Angels are 18-29. This again is their first time playing any sort of AL West team, and we're 2-1 against the West, Johnny. So we're excited about that. Rangers are at 500. They sit a game and a half out of first place. So Bryce, you're talking to your everydayers right now. What do you say to those Locked On Ranger everydayers after this series?
Oh, flush and forget. Flush and forget. That
we have had so many oofs on our show too.
Yes.
I mean, like, I've been trying to like stay positive. Like, just 6 months ago, this team won the World Series, and I was like, after that, like, I'm never gonna be mad at my baseball team again. And well, after this weekend, I'm like, y'all are really pushing it at this point. But I do want to leave you with a Willie Calhoun story. This is my favorite little anecdote about Willie Calhoun, because the Rangers had him for a while in their minor league system, a little bit at the major league level, had some success in 2019, but injuries kind of derailed his career. But as a prospect, this guy was so confident in himself. He was like the next big, great hitter. He came over in the Yu Darvish deal. But whenever someone would ask him what position did he play, at this point, he was still a second baseman, and they were kind of trying him in the outfield, but just not much defensive value to speak of. But he could hit. So when you ask him what position he played, he'd say, I play 3-hole hitter. And I'm like, that is awesome. This man knows who he is. And I love seeing him rake. I mean, I've always been a believer in Willie Calhoun. Great kid. And I'm glad to see him getting opportunities still and absolutely making the most of it at this point. His first game at first base, you know what? His position was 4-hole hitter in the Sunday game. But hey, I'll take it, man. That's a guy that I'm always rooting for, and seeing him thrive, even if it is against my team. You know what? I can't help but be happy for that kid.
I love that. Johnny, real quick, what would you say to the everydayers from Locked On Angels after this series?
Don't expect this to happen again, you guys. Look, you're getting all of your aces back soon. And I should say they're the Rangers fans, but yeah, for us, look, we're 2-1 against the West, and ignore that other record, that overall record. We don't need to talk about that. Let's just be happy. We're 2-1 against the West. That's what counts. And we got the opportunity to win some more games against the West tonight against the Astros.
Hey, thanks for making this crossover your first listen of the day. And the Angels do play the Astros at 5:10 Pacific time. And you can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, if you're interested in following Mike and I, you can do so at Locked On Angels on Twitter and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Before we get to what we're doing on Locked On Angels, Bryce, what do you got going on Locked On Rangers for tomorrow?
Well, for tomorrow's show, I got another crossover with Connor Thomas, host of Locked On Phillies, talking about this big series. Hopefully not stewing as much over what happened this weekend against the Angels. But, John, what have y'all got going on for Locked On Angels fans?
Well, we have some more controversy in Angel land. David Fletcher, former Angel and current Brave, and there's news that came out over the weekend about his betting, and it might be tied to a former Superstars interpreter. And even that former interpreter, or that former superstar, I shouldn't say former superstar. He is a superstar. I'm talking about Ohtani, guys. I'm talking about Ohtani. David Fletcher.
Who is that?
Yeah. David Fletcher and Ipe Mitsuhara know the same bookie. It's a mess. And of course, it all happened under Artie Moreno's watch. Rangers fans, join us in wanting Artie Moreno to sell, please.
Yes.
Until that show, my name is John. That's my brother Mike. And that's Bryce Paterick from Locked On Rangers. Thank you for being here with us. And we'll all see you back here tomorrow.